So I'll be answering question 2, which is how effective is the combination of your main product and auxiliary text. So from a personal perspective, I see the combination of both my products as a successful one, not in terms of the quality, but rather the overarching theme I had planned to follow from the very beginning, and using software such as Adobe Premiere and Photoshop have quite literally allowed me to turn my ideas into a reality. So I was always 100% intending to stick to nature as a theme that revolves around both my music video and auxiliary text, and I'm just going to break down just exactly how I managed to do that and why. So for starters, in terms of my auxiliary text, I made sure they all had some aspect of nature or resemblant of a damselfly, and I'm going to break that down now. So the front cover had branches and a damselfly, the back cover had text which I used Photoshop to mimic text coming off of a branch, so it was all connected and coming off from it. The inside left cover of my album, and the right as well, had a corresponding section of a damselfly which I divided in half, so one had one half of the damselfly and the other had the other half. And I had branches behind the damselfly blended in with both photos. And finally the magazine advert consisted of a damselfly, but it was quite similar to my album cover, so when taking the photo I simply positioned it differently with the camera and as well where it was placed on the branch, making it closer and a different perspective of it basically, and not the same angle for it. And moving on, I think that by creating variety with this, it meant I had more meaning rather than sticking to very similar images, because by essentially making different ideas but yet all one cluster of them, it kind of projects one main theme, again, nature, and the damselfly, which I think I did quite well. Not in terms of quality maybe, but in terms of connoting what I wanted to get across. And it kind of visually addresses the concepts around it, allowing people who see the cover, the auxiliary text, to kind of see the connotations behind it. The colour schemes of my auxiliary text in terms of the photos used for them are not very bright, there's a lot of grey in them, and I did that intentionally to project like the depressing, isolated feeling my protagonist has, but still combining colours like yellow and crystal blue to add some sense of happiness that is projected in the beat of my song. Therefore I believe that in terms of the messages I wanted to display, I have met my own personal interpretations by creating them, and I'm quite happy with them personally. So moving on to my music video, I've found clear links between this and my auxiliary text, as the mise-en-scène aspects, such as setting for example, convey both nature and isolation. The intertwining link between them is that the setting, for example, backs the idea of nature, as we do not see any signs of a large crowded city, simply in a few shots as buildings in the background. But what I found was that the river that divides them actually, in a way, shows the clear divide between nature and humanity, as most of our planet has been covered by civilization, leaving not enough room for nature, which I thought was quite interesting. This links to my theme of nature yet again as well in terms of the trees, just something as simple as that. For example, that something so vital to humanity is kind of like submissive in a way to it, like we kind of put it under the carpet. So when my protagonist walks down an endless path of trees, it links back to the branch on both the front and back cover, as in a way it shows that every little piece is important, because there's clearly issues with trees being cut down and there's a lot of protests about them, so I thought it was quite interesting to look at. It might just be my own interpretation, but I believe I did that quite well. Not only this, but I think the editing that dips to black connotes the vision of an insect as well, with the camera being occasionally handheld, and it kind of exemplifies the wiggly movements of an insect similar to a damselfly. And to simply conclude, I believe the mixture between both my music video and auxiliary text was more than successful, and if not successful, I am also quite happy with it, because I was able to basically create what I had planned from the very start, and now that I've done that, I feel quite satisfied with it.
I really enjoyed the pan of dips to black in the intro and ending for the music video. I think it really connotes the blinking of an insect like a damselfly, which I think is really effective. It's clearly done deliberately for like that specific reason. I think the saying as well asks this is we only follow the protagonist through areas where nature is present and nowhere industrial even resembles to a big city location. Like, there's just none of that. The editing and a choice of saying overall deliver a high importance to the theme of the song, named Damselfly, which obviously lives within nature. By making the protagonist follow this, it creates the idea for me as a viewer that the protagonist symbolises like the damselfly itself.
Yeah, I think the mise en scène was really good. Like, for example, the way the camera kind of moved. Like in some shots, it was almost like a damselfly, kind of like in movement. You get what I mean. So I really like the movement of the camera there. The wardrobe was really important as well, because it really like connoted how that despite like the first impressions like happiness and how happy like the song kind of sounds, it's like he's got this like suppressed emotion of dejection within him, and like his kind of dark colours and the stuff that he was wearing was really key for that. Also like the fact that you see the artist over a whole day ending with like that slow motion tilt up towards the moon after he finishes singing the song, and he sat within the car. And that's a little kind of little like convention of the genre that I really like actually seeing in music videos. I thought that was really cool. It really showed how deep and ingrained like his feelings and emotions were as part of his life, and how they were like just with him like every day. And that's something that's key, because you don't just see like a snapshot. It's like you see his whole life basically. You look really isolated in the setting. It's really like reflected his emotions. So yeah, I really like the messages being presented throughout the music video.
The music video was done pretty well overall. I would just say there's maybe a few things that I'd improve upon. The main thing being less concept shots and more shots of performance. The hybrid is done effectively, but it felt as if we didn't see enough of the protagonist actually singing a song and more of him walking around the areas of nature. However, the music video was done exceptionally well, but for me it just feels as if it needed more performance rather than concept shots. So towards the end of the video, I got a little bit bored of the shots, so maybe some development in this theme would have kept it engaging. I get why he chose the locations, but for cinematography, there could be a little more added bits of creativity. I'm not sure what, but maybe more symbolic use of camera shots and angles, like with the very end one.
So I'll be answering question 3, which is what have you learnt from audience feedback. So well, I've gathered a lot from my audience feedback, and I think analysing them chronologically is probably the best way to break it down personally. So when looking at my first response, I found a profound happiness towards it, as my intentions were clearly seen within my main media product. I wanted to develop the theme of the song named Damselfly to an overarching theme within my music video and ancillary text by taking nature as the main element to fill it with. The interpretation which I intended viewers to have, such as the first audience responses had, is, for example, like the dips to black being in a way symbolic of a blinking insect, which meant personally to me that I succeeded in what I wanted to do, as it was clearly identified. Not only this, but the setting I specifically chose for each shot of my music video was intentional, as I wanted to avoid crowded areas as nature connotes like some peace and reflection in the way of the world we create around it. And it's just kind of a seclusion from all like the congestion of like a big city or industrial area. And to be truly honest, when hearing this response, I felt a sense of satisfaction, as not one but two key intentions in terms of editing and mise en scène had been correctly identified by my first viewer. Now, moving on to my second response, it focused more on the use of camera and what effect along with the colour schemes and connotations it brought with it. The occasional use of handheld shots, which there wasn't many, connoted the idea of a damselfly's wiggly movements, and looking back I probably should have added more in to just further convey it. And yet again, I intended to have a reoccurring theme of traits that are symbolic of a damselfly, yet indirectly it does not address them in my music video or even confirm them, as they are just basically techniques that I tried to do and just be creative with. The slow motion tilt up I have in the final part of my media product was said to be a reflection of my protagonist's emotions, which personally I was intending as the moon being brighter than anything at night. It kind of in a way reflects the light, or it projects the light onto Earth the same way my protagonist projects his emotions onto both the viewer and in a way the moon, because it does look at it, even though he does have his back turned to it. I do feel like the emotions were overall like projected into that area. And yet again, I was more than happy with it. The response I got from it was just basically the intentions I was trying to deliver, and I'm glad it was received correctly. Now, moving on to my final response, I found this one to be the most helpful one, if I'm being honest, even though it's probably the harshest one compared to the other two. However, it was the most informative one, like the mistakes, so, you know, in a way, rather the improvements to take into consideration. The response looked at how I did not use performance shots and just basically filled it with concept shots, not allowing an equal balance for a hybrid, basically, to summarise it. When this response was given to me, I chose to go back and like have a look at my music video and see if I could point it out for myself, and I think the response gave an extremely fair point, as when I looked at it and basically took that idea into recognition rather than just my personal viewing of it, I didn't like see it basically, and it does deduct meaning from my media product, as it didn't really provide an actual purpose of like the music video, which is essentially for an artist to be performing the song that he or she wrote and just get it to the audience as they want to hear it rather see it than hear it as they do through like headphones. And I don't know, besides that, I'm more than happy with the responses I've got at my first attempt at making a music video. I've never had experience with it, so overall it's been quite a enjoyable thing to do, to be honest.